Good morning from Pompey. Uh, we have a short break in the clouds. I'm going to take advantage of it. Thanks for joining us. And if you're not subscribed to the channel, please subscribe. Thank you. We go live every time our telescopes are imaging anything in the heavens, whether it's during daytime, the sun, nighttime, other stars. Rain is going to be coming within about an hour or so, so we're going to stay on M45 as the only target we're dealing with. We're going to keep an eye on the stack. So far, good morning, Konstantinos. Yes, I ordered the DWARF 3. The big differences will be in the dual band filter. DWARF 2 does not have one, DWARF 3 will have one. The second big difference will be stacking the wide angle view. And the third difference is that glass will be about 50% bigger. So the aperture is slightly bigger. The Seestar still has a wider aperture and a narrower field of view. So when it comes to deep sky objects, I believe Seestar will still be better. However, DWARF 3 is going to have a big advantage with imaging wide angle, so you can get things like meteor showers and the Milky Way that you cannot get with Seestar. And if the specs of the dual band filter are accurate, then DWARF 3's dual band filter is narrower than Seestar, so it should be able to do better with certain nebula. I plan to own all three, DWARF 2, DWARF 3 and Seestar. And thanks for joining us, and please do subscribe if you are not subscribed to the channel. This is the only astronomy channel on YouTube that goes live multiple times a week, both covering sun and nighttime objects. If the sky is clear, even for a short time like now, we are live. And make sure to join us Tuesday night for the Saturn Moon conjunction. Saturn is going to dance around the moon, and Seestar is going to be the ideal instrument to capture it. The Saturn will be about 25 arc minutes away from the moon. So I plan to track Saturn and watch the moon travel under it. It'll be an interesting dance. So that'll be tomorrow night, Tuesday night, beginning 10 p.m. Eastern Daylight Savings. I'm keeping an eye on the stack because we have rain coming in. Oh, definitely. Size and weight of D3 remains a big advantage. One other advantage of dwarf, whether it's 2 or 3, is the telephoto field of view. It is wider, about 3 times wider than Seestar, which allows capturing targets like M45, M31, and M33 that would not fit in Seestar. I mean, Pleiades is such a beautiful target. Seestar only gets a chunk of it. The dwarf gets the whole thing. Same with Andromeda. Seestar cannot get it. It gets a slice. Dwarf, it's one of the better targets for dwarf to image. Rocking clouds are covering the sky, but I'm going to let dwarf do its thing. As long as it's able to capture and stack, we're going to let it do that. But I will be turning off the audio to avoid waking up the dogs and the rest of the household. But I will be here on the chat. Konstantinos, yes, this is what the final AI enhancement will do. Right now, to be able to go full 4K, I do not have control over the histogram, so I cannot stretch the image that you are seeing, but I'm stretching the image that's displayed on the tablet. I have DWARF pulled up on both, and I want to see if I can switch the two. See if I can change the current host. It says your device is currently the node and cannot take control, even though I switched it. So yeah, I don't know if you can see, it's tiny, but the curves are disabled here. And it's not allowing me to take over. It says device is node control disabled. So I'm going to go back to the other one being host. Not sure if exiting the other app will allow me to go host. Let me see. Okay, I exited the tablet app. We are connected to DWARF, and we are stacking. Let's see if it lets me go in and out. We are connected. Will you let me be? Nope. Node device control disabled. So it's not going to let me. Nope. Sorry, cannot make it darker now. DWARF does not want me to. Let me see if I can show you the difference quickly. I'm going to pull the other one side by side. And here it comes. This is the tablet. Where I have full control of the curves to stretch it. So you got trade-off if you want it. You can either have low resolution stretched version or high resolution unstretched version. Good news is we have captured 136 and stacked 135, so we are still surviving the clouds, managing with the clouds. No, I'm streaming from the laptop from a 4K monitor. This is the tablet now, and don't know if you can see the difference, but I'll switch between them quickly. This is the laptop. The controls around the corners are a lot smaller, obviously. DWARF will run native under Windows subsystem for Android, except it's not letting me take control from the Windows subsystem. It is insisting that the tablet will control the DWARF. That's another difference between Seestar and DWARF. DWARF is indeed a true 4K sensor. It's 3820 by 2160 pixel. Seestar is a quarter of that. The process of streaming the full 4K, I worked backwards from YouTube, making sure it'll allow 4K. Back to the encoder, I use OBS Studio. It allows 4K, we set it at 4K. And then onto the capture device. A 4K monitor allows displaying in 4K, and then DWARF as a device will gladly stream at 4K, but not through the tablet. I cannot find a tablet that is 4K because they believe you don't need 4K for a tablet. So with DWARF running on Android, we are good. Captured 149, stacked 148, we're still stacking. Oh good, I see Jupiter again. Jupiter is my guiding light. If I cannot see Jupiter in the sky, it means we have a problem. In addition to rain and clouds, we are dealing with smoke, fire. And I should be able to pull up a map. And this is the smoke and fire map live. We are the little blinking blue dot, and these are the fires in the western US shooting smoke up. Right now we're getting smoke primarily from the fires in Florida, but that is the plume of smoke that's going all the way to Europe, blanketing us nicely. 3 nights ago we were under the darkest of the dark and could not see anything in the sky. And this is the big challenge that you're fighting. This precipitation is coming our way. So we'll go back to looking at the stacking process. Captured 179, captured 171, stacked 169, so we're good. Last night I had to grab a wet dwarf, and bring it in because the rain started very suddenly. Dwarf was still looking at the moon. Moon had just risen over the horizon, was not too high. So dwarf was looking out and the clouds of the rain were above. So even though the image had not gone dark yet, dwarf was getting wet, was getting drenched. Good news, no harm done. It's still working, I just dried it up nicely. Right now, good morning Blobrana. Stars magnitude 16? I think so. There are some very faint stars in there. Not the main 7 stars in the Pleiades. The constellation itself, M45, has a magnitude of 1.6. And yes, I can see it with the naked eye. I look up to the sky and I can see the Pleiades, and it is unmistakable. I live in Bortle 4, by the way. Looking at the individual star, the top star Tauri is 5.6. Maya and Alcyon They are in the, everything else is in the 7 range, 7.1, 7.3, 7.4. As a bit of trivia, Pleiades and Orion are two constellations mentioned in the Bible. So their names date back well before the birth of Christ, well before BC. I mean, well BC, hundreds of years BC when they were mentioned. Yeah, nebulosity is starting to show. So according to Google, Orion and the Pleiades are mentioned in the book of Job in the Bible, and that was written, actually it was translated in the year 250 BC. Rana, thanks for joining us, and if you're not subscribed to the channel, please subscribe. Station identification. This is the Pompey Observatory, the only channel on YouTube, the only astronomy channel that goes live between 5 and 10 times per week, imaging everything from sun to moon, planets and stars, galaxies and nebula, comets and binary stars. We're keeping an eye on. TCRB has not gone nova on us yet. We're still doing very well. We have stacked 206 out of 208 captured. And I can still see Jupiter, and that's always a good sign. Tomorrow night, Saturn will pass less than half arc degree, about 25 arc minutes from the moon. And I plan to have multiple telescopes imaging that event. In all likelihood, weather permitting, we will have the 11-inch Edge HD Celestron on Saturn, and we will have Seestar showing Saturn dancing around the moon, and we will have DWARF as a backup My plan right now is to have Seestar tracking Saturn and Dwarf tracking the Moon. So in one case you'll see the Moon moving under Saturn and out. In the other case you'll see Saturn moving above the Moon from left to right. The distance of 25 arc minutes is such that Seestar cannot fit both the Moon and Saturn in the same field of view. By centering Seestar on Saturn, we'll end up with about half the Moon, which will have a full moon tonight. So that'll be a very interesting scene, interesting sight, Moon traveling under Saturn. And then on September 17, we have a partial lunar eclipse. We plan to cover it with multiple instruments. And then we have Saturn in opposition. Until then, we'll keep taking images of Mars. Mars is moving closer and closer to Earth, and will get in opposition late winter. January 16, 2025 is when Mars will be in opposition. And I'm looking forward to taking some detailed images of Mars. Why am I not surprised that it's cloudy in Scotland? On what side of Scotland are you? East, west, or north? I've been to both Edinburgh and Glasgow several times when I lived in Manchester. It was an easy train ride. Hop on the train and then a few hours later we're enjoying tea and biscuit in Edinburgh. Aberdeen, okay. Never got a chance to travel that far north. I think Dundee is the farthest we visited. I would have certainly liked to go all the way up to Inverness and the Shetlands at some point, but never got around to it. So you guys in Aberdeen are not too far from some very dark skies if you go inland. I'm assuming that Balmoral Castle is in very dark sky. Let me check the sky. What equipment does the observatory at Dundee have? What instrument? Yeah, the western side of Scotland, anything north of Fort William is very, very nice dark skies. Yeah, we have a couple of old refractors here. The Holden Observatory at okay, the Holden Observatory at Syracuse University has a refractor that was built in the 1870s, and the mechanism is spring operated. Actually, it is gravity operated. You pull the weights down, and it's a clocking mechanism, very, very old clock of sorts, that ensures that it is tracking objects in the sky as the weights drop down from the other side. Very, very elaborate mechanism. Just imagine a grandfather clock driving the telescope. Not sure. Not sure if it's a Frank Cook. No, that telescope would have been built before before Frank Cook, well before. Unable to find quickly what the telescope was other than very, very long. I plan to go back to the Holden Observatory and possibly record a short video. We have stacked 261 frames of the Pleiades, so far 262. Yes, I see the net. Much darker than downtown Aberdeen, that's for sure. Ooh. Which observatory up north was burned by vandalism, by arson? Lochdoon in East Ayrshire, Scotland. burned by arson in 2021. Yeah, in Cumbria. That's so unfortunate. Yeah, south and to the west. Is Cumbria in the west of Scotland? Our train ride from Manchester to Glasgow was memorable for the storm that hit the area, and trees were downed on the tracks. So the train stopped in the middle of nowhere as we awaited the big trees to be cleared, and we were there for hours. Eventually made it to Glasgow. Wednesday morning we have a pass of the International Space Station that will be practically overhead, very close to the zenith. And that should give us a good test for the new equipment. Yeah, the west coast has the Atlantic open. I want to switch quickly between the 4K and the HD images. Yeah, the 4K is just a little bit washed out. In reality, that's probably the more accurate image considering the smoke that we're dealing with up in the atmosphere. But we'll go back to the slightly more pleasing image. So we're starting to see quite a bit of nebulosity around Merope, which is this one. Now we cannot have a imaging session of M45 without mentioning the trivia that the Subaru car company was named after M45. Pleiades in Japanese is Subaru. And when the car company was formed by merging 6 other companies, they adopted as their logo on the cars the 6 stars that represent the 6 companies and named it Subaru with reference to the Pleiades or M45. We have a German Shepherd and a Belgian Shepherd downstairs. Both part of the EU, so they get along fairly well. Hello, Myanmar. Hello, Red Angel. I took dark frames, so the answer is yes, it is stacking both dark and light frames automatically. With every light frame that DWARF takes, it subtracts the dark frame from it before stacking it. That is an interesting difference between Seestar and DWARF II, and I don't think they're changing it with DWARF III. Seestar takes dark frames automatically at the start of every session. When you tell it to go to a target, the first thing it does is closes the aperture on its own and takes dark frames at that temperature, at that time, and then subtracts them from every light frame. DWARF, I have to take the darks manually by putting DWARF in its bag and putting the bag inside a big case and putting the case inside a dark room and turning the lights off, and then taking about 20 minutes to take the darks. In theory, I should do that every session. In practice, I do that less often. It is easy to tell whether the darks are out of date or not by looking closely at the image and trying to see if there is any red, green, or blue dots that are traveling like worms. That is usually the clear indicator of a hot pixel that is not being cancelled by a dark frame. I don't see any. Thanks for joining us. Come back often. That's right, it's Monday. We're approaching 5 a.m. on the East Coast. The sun is currently 14 degrees below the horizon, expected to rise at 6:15. So in theory, at around 5:15 is when we get into astronomical twilight. And then becomes a matter of when do we stop stacking, or do we wait for dwarf to stop stacking? So astronomical twilight here begins at 4:29. So we are in astronomical twilight. Nautical twilight begins at 5:08. Civil twilight begins at 5:45. Sunrise at 6:14. And sunset at 8:01. So we should be able to go past nautical twilight. Nautical twilight is when the sun is 12 degrees below the horizon. 5:08, so coming up in 10 minutes. So somewhere between nautical twilight and civil twilight is when we will stop stacking. Looks like the battery will dictate how long we will stay alive. It's down to 29%. I like to cycle the batteries to extend their life. So we have been live for an hour and 21 minutes. So we have another 40 minutes on this battery, maybe. When it gets 10%, I'll plug it in if we're still stacking. Good morning, Astro Cozy. Greetings to you. We have a small window of opportunity between thunderstorms. Rain is moving in on us. I estimated that we have a 2-hour window and I decided to take it. M45 was very clear in the sky. I could see it with the naked eyes. So I went for it. And so far so good. We have stacked 447 frames. Battery is down from 100% to 27%. And we are in astronomical twilight, which means the sun is less than 18 degrees below the horizon. So we probably have about another half hour before it gets too light for dwarf to stack anything. Yeah, storms are less of a problem if I bring the telescopes in before it rains on them. Yesterday, I was imaging the moon last night. The moon was low to the horizon, and the rain came from above. So even though the moon was still very clear, it was raining on the dwarf. Fortunately, it was not ruined. I dried it and put it in the microwave for 2 minutes and everything came out okay. Just kidding about the microwave, don't try it at home. Yes, we are correct. This is M45. Did you see any new sunspots? Hoping to take a look at the sun today. Did not look at the sun yesterday. What is the sunspot situation? No, nothing new. 3796 is actually, yes, there is. 3796 looks big. Then 3790 and 92. So we're going to have a nice solar session today. Let's see when the clouds permit it. Yeah, as soon as it gets to 10%, I will plug it in. I try to cycle the batteries occasionally in case I need to use them without power, without access to power, especially in the field. Yes, the sunrise is at 6:15, which is in 1 hour, but we are already in twilight. So as soon as dwarf stops stacking, we will wish you all a happy week, happy Monday, and we will go offline awaiting sunrise. I'll probably come back on slightly after 7 a.m. So we'll be off for about an hour or so to switch gear from nighttime observing to daytime observing. Red Angel, a bit of trivia. The Pleiades was mentioned in the book of Job in the Bible, 250 years BC. Actually, it was mentioned in Amos first. Yes, indeed. And it is interesting that in two separate books in the Bible, the Old Testament, the Pleiades appears named as such after Greek mythology. We're starting to lose stacking. Okay, 508 current stacked 500. We have dropped 8 frames. Let me see what's going on. The storm is imminent, and I'm going to wish you all a good week and bring the telescope inside.